Hi, this is Dr. Manimala Selvi Naikar, consultant histopathologist and statistician. Okay, in this evidence-based medicine series, we're going to discuss brainwashing, right? I'm interested in this topic now because of the Andrew Tate case. Now, first, as usual, my conflict of interest statements. Uh, the first thing is I see the similarity between the Andrew Tate case and what happened to doctors who are questioning the new mRNA vax and the evidence on ivermectin, right? We experienced big tech cancellation, media vilification, and some doctors even had legal troubles. The second issue is in this case that the media has gone into overdrive using moral and ethical arguments rather than straight up regulatory and legal arguments. So we had scenes of victims crying on TV long after the event, and a feelings based narrative. The third is I've noticed that charging men with sexual crimes, right, seems to be something that is used in the sense that you find that these men are charged with sexual crimes, but there's no violence involved, and the women victims, so-called victims, have significant previous sexual history. And the fourth issue, the one which is really of interest to me, is this case also had a couple of medical issues. The first was sexual choking, right? The way the media presented it was as though this was a very terrible thing to do, whereas in the medical field we know that sexual choking is a very common sexual preference, and in fact many women do like it, right? And the other issue was brainwashing. Okay, now as usual to the long list of disclaimers, right? I'm going to look at brainwashing mainly as a medical entity, not so much as a media entity. Now, as usual, medicine has lots of terminology confusion. I'm a pathologist, not a psychiatrist. So for clinical correlation, we need a psychiatrist to talk about this case, right? I'm not a lawyer. I don't even have a law degree. I neither read, write, speak, nor understand the Romanian language. So whatever I'm depending on translated documents, and whatever facts I'm using are that reported in the various media. I have no access to the original court documents, and I do not know the Romanian law. Okay, now I'm not sure if Romania has specific laws for women outside of that involving biological or scientific reasons, right? Like we know in Malaysia, we have the rape law only applies to men. Only men can rape women. Women cannot rape men, right? Because of the men, only men have superior physical strength. Likewise, in Malaysia, we have maternity leave based on female reproduction. Okay, so I do not know whether there are any laws outside of that. Okay, what is very interesting about this case from a medical perspective is brainwashing has never been successfully used as a defense in criminal cases. It has been tried, but it has never been successfully used, right? In civil cases, I've not come across any attempt like, can someone buy a very expensive handbag and refuse to pay the credit card debt saying that they were brainwashed because of the advertisement? There are things like that. So that is an interesting argument to me. Now, so before we start, we have to categorize things clearly, right? So the first thing is deception. Now, deception has got a subjective and an objective component to it. Now, if I were to tell you I love you, that is subjective because you cannot measure it, right? Now, if I were to tell you I'm rich, that is objective, that's measurable. So assuming a man comes and tells a woman, I am a rich guy and I love you. So that is the lover boy method. The normal thing that you would expect the woman to do is due diligence, right? Assuming that she's not a lazy or a greedy woman, she will try and find out more about this guy, right? And then if she's convinced that he is not trying to cheat her, then she will probably go to his country or to go to his house. Now, if she goes there and finds that things are not as claimed, the next question is, could she remove herself from his presence, either by physically walking away or calling the police or whatever? Now, if that is possible, I mean, she could have walked away and she didn't walk away, but claims that she was brainwashed. right? So what they are saying is she could have walked away, but she didn't because she was brainwashed. So now this entity called brainwashing becomes very important. So we have to look at what exactly is brainwashing. So I looked up the definitions, right? Colloquially or common use, they call it brainwashing. In the medical encyclopedias, for example, in Encyclopedia Britannica, they call it coercive persuasion. And in the Collins Dictionary, they say it's a concentrated and sustained indoctrination designed to delete a person's fundamental beliefs and attitudes and replace them with new imposed data. Then they go on to say that it is questionable whether this intention can ever be fully realized. So what it means is you can try to brainwash somebody, but you will almost always not succeed. So what are the steps in brainwashing? Now, from a old CIA project from the 1960s or 70s, it's called MK Ultra. We know that they first have to use fear, torture, etc. to remove your old inhibitions and your old values from your head. Say for example, that you mustn't murder anybody, right? Then they can use indoctrination, etc. to put new thoughts into your head. It's okay to murder people. But where they said that the project fails is you can't get people to execute the new thoughts independently. Like you can't send them out and ask them to commit a murder, right? So basically, according to what is available to the public, this project failed, right? So as far as we know, you cannot, brainwashing is not an entity which can be successfully used. So I looked in what do you call it, the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual version 5 for psychiatry. Okay, I think it's produced by the American Psychological Association, APA. It comes under dissociative disorders, but it comes in a very shy way. You know, it's sort of mentioned in passing. There is no real body of medical what shall I say evidence on this. So there are just 2 pages where it's sort of mentioned in passing, right? So what it says is that intense coercive persuasion, brainwashing. Okay, it is a cause. Okay, it is a method, right? But it's not a disease in itself. You have to use brainwashing to cause some other condition, and the condition that it can cause is known as a dissociative disorder. All right, suspected of causing dissociative disorder, but it's usually in order to sort of fit in, it has to be something very prolonged, very sustained, very brutal, right? So I do not know whether if such a thing occurred in the current case in Romania. So what brainwashing can do is it can cause dissociative disorder characterized by a disruption of and or discontinuity in the normal integration of consciousness, memory, identity, emotion, perception, body representation, motor control and behavior. So it's quite a significant disease, right? So whether the victims displayed this spectrum of disease or not, we will have to look at the psychiatrist or psychologist report. I believe there is an extrajudicial report. Now, how did this brainwashing thing come into our consciousness? I mean, how do we know about it? Apparently, it started in the 1950s during the Korean War, when there were about 7,200 prisoners of war American prisoners of war in Korea and China, and these prisoners of war were induced to say treasonous things against America, right? And when they were released, 21 of them refused to come back. So at that time, the Americans were very worried, you know, whether their troops can be turned like this. So they conducted experiments on humans. Apparently, they were illegal experiments. This is known as the MK Ultra project, right? So in that, they found that you can try to brainwash people, but you're not going to succeed, right? So in the Andrew Tate case, based on the information that is out in the public, these were adult women with prior sexual experience, some of them with significant sexual experience, and from what we know, they were not restrained or coerced in any significant way, right? Yet the judge says that Mr. Andrew Tate and his brother have the ability to brainwash them to do webcam work. Okay, so what the CIA was not able to accomplish, these brothers have accomplished. Okay, so that's a very significant, what shall I say, scientific advancement that these brothers have made. And the other thing which is a bit puzzling is the fact that webcam is very, legal in Romania. It seems to be legal, and there are lots of young ladies lining up to do it. So why would you want to go to the trouble of importing someone from another country, to house them, feed them, and play host to them when you have so many people lining up to do it? So these are things that need to be answered. And from what I see, the only tools of coercion at the disposal of the Tate brothers is love and sex. So basically, using love and sex, they have accomplished what the CIA could not do with drugs such as LSD, mescaline, torture, etc. Right? So this is something that needs further study. Right? Now, the other thing that we have to think about is, if love and sex can brainwash someone, should the government ban it? Right? So that's a question that we need to think about. So with that, thank you very much. Next in the EBM series, I'm planning to look at statistical significance, Fisher versus Neyman Pearson. Now, are they rolling about in the factory floor, or are they turning in their graves? Factory statistics versus medical statistics. Now, I think this the medical fraternity, seems to have forgotten that the ICH E9 was designed as industrial statistics, right? Meant for the use in industry, right? Not what shall I say, a routine medical work. So that hopefully will be my next in my EBM series. Thank you.